team ban. Radiant team ban.
What's cracking, ladies and gentlemen? FortyeniN coming at you with another community shoutcast for the UGC League Dota 2 Season 2. We're loading into game number 1 of a best of 2 series between FortyeniN up against Tuzki or Husky. FortyeniN are a New Zealand team that have competed in a few New Zealand tournaments. The last series I casted with them was during the Aspect of Gaming Dota 2 Community Crackdown. They're a very experienced team. They were unfortunately knocked out in the second stage of the tournament by iClan, which is a combined New Zealand and Australian team. And so today for the preseason best of 2 series, they're playing up against Tuzki or Husky, who are an Australian team. Haven't unfortunately casted Tuzki or Husky before. I think they're a relatively new team, which should be interesting to see how they perform. So FortyeniN, they do have first pick, and immediately we see they've banned out the Titanter as well as the Razor, whereas Tuzki or Husky, they've opted to ban out Lycanthrope as well as the Doombringer. So that means that the Pandarian Brewmaster is still in the field. So these are fairly standard bans coming up from both teams, and since FortyeniN, they do have first pick, they can choose to capitalize by picking up Brewmaster very early on. The advantage of the Brewmaster is he essentially guarantees you every single team fight every time that Primal splits off cooldown for at least the first 20 minutes. The drawback of the Brewmaster is while he's an incredibly powerful hero for the first 35 minutes, if you're unable to breach high ground or put your team in a good enough position to capitulate the enemy team during the end game, it becomes very difficult to try to win the game post 35 minutes, as the Pandarian Brewmaster's Brewlings, they become squishy enough that the physical DPS of the enemy carry can just right click them down, and usually it's around that 35-minute mark where 2 or 3 of their or even all 3 of their cores on the enemy team will have BKBs. So it looks like with the Faceless Void first pick coming out from FortyeniN, while we've got a Death Prophet as well as a Skywrath Mage first and second pick coming out from Tuzki or Husky. So Death Prophet as well as a Skywrath Mage, all 3 of these heroes are actually very staple. And the reason for it is they are currently very powerful in the current metagame, which emphasizes these early 5-on-5 engagements, as well as taking early game objectives. So Death Prophet, you can send her either into the mid lane, or she has actually been run a fair few times in the competitive scene as a tri-lane farmer, in the scenario where you want the Death Prophet to find as much farm as possible. So if it's an unsuitable mid matchup for the Death Prophet, you put her in that tri-lane, or if you decide to clash aggressive tri-lane against a much weaker tri-lane. Since the Death Prophet in that tri-v-tri situation, she offers you a lot of AoE damage coming out from the Crypt Swarm, but she excels in that 1v1 role because of how efficient the Crypt Swarm is. You do actually see a lot of Death Prophet players skip the Exorcism at level 6 if they think that they're going to prioritize farm, if they don't think they could go for a kill attempt with the Exorcism, or if they can't actually drive the enemy mid hero out of the lane. So we've got a Lich pickup coming up from Faceless Void, so it's a fairly standard combination between the two. You've got the Chronosphere to set up for the Chain Frost. The advantage of the Faceless Void in that off-lane position is he gives you that drafting advantage. The enemy team is now forced to ban out heroes that work exceptionally well with the Faceless Void. So an example of that is the Skywrath Mage, the Lich, or the Witch Doctor. So these are the fairly common pickups to work well with the Void. But since Void has so many support heroes that can work well with him, you can't ban them all out. And so it gives you that drafting flexibility in the sense that the enemy team is now forced to pick up heroes that work well against the Void. They now have to draft a lineup that has a contingency for the Chronosphere. And so far they've done this with the Death Prophet as well as the Skywrath Mage. So long as Death Prophet pops the Exorcism before she gets chronoed, the Exorcism will persist through the Chronosphere, and if she's got enough farm that Faceless Void can't actually kill her, because he's a melee hero, it will be too close to the Death Prophet, the Exorcism Spirits will deal a huge amount of damage to him. It might actually even kill him inside the Chronosphere, or at least threaten him to back off. The advantage of the Death Prophet is because she's so durable, and because she provides such a huge amount of presence, the Faceless Void has to chrono her in every single engagement, otherwise he'll get torn apart inside his own Chronosphere. And Skywrath Mage, because Ancient Seal has a 0-second cast point, he could actually silence the Faceless Void as he time walks in before he could get the Chronosphere off. Since Faceless Void, his Chronospheres go 0.54 cast point, so while he's winding his arms up, if you're quick enough with your reflexes and your fingers, you actually can catch him up with silence. In which case, Faceless Void's stuck in no man's land, and it's very easy to start a fight 4v5 after taking out the Void. So we've got a Shadow Shaman as well as a Centaur Warrunner ban coming out from FortyeniN. And Centaur Warrunner, he's a hero that works exceptionally well against the Void, and that's for 2 reasons. Firstly, in a 1v1 matchup, Centaur Warrunner does very well against the Void. Since Void's a melee hero, so it means that he's always going to be at risk of eating the Hoofstomp double edge combo, so it means that Centaur Warrunner can actually bully him in the lane. And secondly, he's able to provide the Stampede to get his teammates to split apart when the Chronosphere comes in. So the instant Faceless Void time walks, all the Centaurs to do is press R. The rest of his teammates can then create enough distance. It'll be very difficult to catch more than one of them out with the Chronosphere. We've got the Viper pickup coming up from Tuzki or Husky, and Viper in conjunction with the Death Prophet is an exceptionally powerful combination. So Tuzki or Husky, so far they're opting for a very meta-heavy draft. They've opted for the primary core of the Death Prophet, who most likely will be the mid lane farmer in this case, although Viper also functions exceptionally well as that 1v1 mid lane hero.
Remaining.
And so they've got that flexibility of either the Death Prophet or the Viper, so that's going to depend on what mid hero they think they'll be up against, as well as the player preference. And the advantage of Viper is he provides you a lot of pushing power in the sense that Nether Toxin actually applies half damage to towers, and because he's so durable in conjunction with the Death Prophet, if you focus on the Viper, the Death Prophet will walk all over you. If you focus on the Death Prophet, then likewise Viper is able to pin you down and knock you down. And with the two hero synergy in particular, you've got the Viper Stroke that sets up for the Death Prophet Exorcism. Since a Death Prophet's Exorcism, the way the spirits are coded is they will, similar to the carries in StarCraft 2, they'll launch an attack and they'll fly back to the Death Prophet before they can launch another attack. So that means that the closer Death Prophet is to whatever target she's focusing with the spirits, the more damage she'll deal. And so with the 80% snare coming out from the level 3 Viper Strike, Death Prophet phases into on top of the enemy hero. The spirits will be able to constantly deal their max amount of DPS. You can instantly pop a lot of this squishier heroes over on FortyeniN. We've got a Visage pickup now coming out from FortyeniN. Visage, he used to be considered the undisputed king of the tri-lane, just due to the sheer amount of offensive potential he provided with that Soul Assumption, as well as the Grave Shield to set up. However, he has tapered off significantly due to the fact that the recent nerf to the Visage was the fact that it reduced his base magic resistance from 25% down to 10%. So Visage, while he's incredibly powerful as an offensive support, he's incredibly squishy and he's very easy to catch out of position because he's so slow until he hits level 6. Unless you're able to, at Clash Try, if you try very aggressively and take kills early on, Visage does taper off. In this particular case, with FortyeniN picking up Lich as well, because they've got a soft support duo, they've got no hard CC between them, so they've got no way to actually interrupt TB or channels until the Visage Familiars come online. And so they're entirely dependent on being able to provide enough damage for them to kill their target before they could try to escape, or before they could turn around and go for a kill attempt. And so Tuzki or Husky, they're punishing the soft support duo coming up from FortyeniN with the Clockwork Goblin, and because Tuzki or Husky actually are on the Radiant side, Clockwork Goblins should be off to a great start. As the offlane hero, the biggest strength of the Clockwork Goblin is if he's able to catch a single support hero out on his own, he can actually threaten the kill. So with the Battery Assault, even without cogs, he's just able to deal enough damage, he's got enough movement speed that he could run them down. But FortyeniN, they've actually gone for a bit of an unconventional duo. They've got the Visage as well as the Lich in conjunction with the Drow Rangers. So the reason why this works is the Visage Familiars actually received the benefit of the Marksman aura coming out from Drow Ranger. And so that actually becomes an incredibly potent pushing force. Since Drow Ranger, once she gets the marksmanship at level 6, she can knock down towers faster than any other hero, just through sheer right clicks. And so the sheer amount of damage potential the Drow Ranger provides, especially in conjunction with the Visage Familiars, and the Void literally to win you these teamfights, means that while FortyeniN, it doesn't look like they have a conventional pushing lineup, every single time they're able to take a fight, or take a gank, and win successfully, they can then translate that into a tower. So it will enable them to get very far ahead in the early stage of the game. Whereas Tuzki or Husky, they've opted to ban out the Invoker as well as the Jakiro. And so the Invoker ban, very standard, especially when there's a Faceless Void in the field, since Invoker, when you've got that Faceless Void, you go for Cost Exalt, and it gives you the flexibility of being able to land those Sunstrikes every time Void commits. So it ensures that every single time Void Chronospheres, you get a kill. And the sole function of an offlane Void is to try to hit level 6, and every single time you've got Chronosphere, Chrono leap in, Chrono a target, and kill a target inside the Chronosphere, and you could use that to swing the momentum to your team's favor. We've now got a Puck ban coming up from Tuzki or Husky, as Puck is a hero that's able to control enemy positioning and enemy movement, and that's what Drow Ranger needs. The biggest weakness of the Drow Ranger, especially with the Clockwork Goblin in the field, is all he has to do is hookshot her and stay next to her, and Drow instantly loses all of her damage. So if you're able to create a team that could buy her space, or prevent the enemy team from physically getting close to the Drow Ranger, then she's able to deal obscene amount of damage, and so in that case, Void functions very well, because he can set up the Chronosphere to ensure that Drow Ranger can get damage in, and you never want to draft another melee carry in conjunction with the Void, unless if it's something like an Ember Spirit, because once you Chrono, they're not going to be able to do anything inside the Chronosphere. And so now we've got an Earthshaker ban. Earthshaker and Skywrath Mage are very potent support duo, because you've got the Concussive Shot to set up for a very easy Fissure Block, and on top of that, Earthshaker provides you the control, as well as the lockdown, and Skywrath Mage provides you the damage. So it's the reason why Skywrath Mage is currently the most powerful support hero in the metagame, is not only is he exceptionally fast, which is very surprising for a support hero because it means that he's actually able to keep himself out of harm's way, it also gives him a huge amount of flexibility in the sense that you could use Skywrath to set up for your other support hero with the Concussive Shot, so you could even run questionable support duos like the Skywrath Mage and Alchemist, because you could use Concussive Shot to set up for the Unstable Concoction, and you could also use Skywrath Mage alternatively as the one that deals damage if you've got a better setup hero, and so it gives you that flexibility with picking your support heroes, and you always want to pick up a support hero that gets set up for the other one, and then you want to pick another support hero that provides a lockdown. So in this case, you've got Visage or Lich actually being set up, but because Lich is faster, Lich most likely will be initiating any gank attempt with the Frost Blast, give Visage enough space to be able to get in range for the Grave Shield, and then you finish them off with the Soul Assumption. Tuzki or Husky, they've actually opted to pick up a Pugner, and Pugner works absolutely fantastically with their lineup because they've got the benefit of the Nether Ward being able to completely destroy the Visage as well as the Lich. They do chew through a huge amount of mana. Lich's Frost Blast, 190 mana at level 4. Every time he drops that, he's going to be eating more damage from the Nether Ward feedback than he's going to be dealing. So it's a great way to deal with these squishy supports. However, the drawback of the Pugner is he actually doesn't do too well against the Void. The Void catches him out in the Chronosphere, especially since in this case it looks like it's going to be a 4 or a 5 position Pugner. He will pop. Pugner's an incredibly frail hero. He's got no real way to survive inside the Chronosphere. He can, however, provide some assistance with the Decrepify, so he can either decrep the Void or decrep whatever target he's going on. And on that same note, you could also use it against the Drow Ranger. But the primary benefit of the Pugner in this case is it provides you more pushing power. So the way Tuzki or Husky have drafted their lineup is, from the look of it, most likely will be Death Prophet mid, Viper Trey lane with the Skywrath as well as the Pugner, and Clockwork Goblin over in the offlane. They want to get at level 6 up on the Viper as well as the Death Prophet as soon as possible. In this case, Viper most likely will be a mech carrier. Death Prophet will probably be going for something like a phase drum into Yule Scepter, and we've actually got a Husker pickup from FortyeniN, so a highly unconventional draft coming out from them. First of all, starting with the Visage Drow duo, now going in with the Husker. So from the look of it, we might actually be seeing a Drow Ranger in the mid lane and a Husker in the off lane. Husker also can be sent to the mid lane, but the drawback of this is there's a Viper in the field, and Viper hard counters the Husker, because the biggest weakness to the Husker is he's a hero that inherently counters himself. Since he relies on being on low HP pool for him to be able to output maximum amount of damage using Berserker's Blood as well as the Flaming Spears. However, in doing so, he puts himself at high risk to the Viper's Nether Toxin, as well as the fact that Tuzki or Husky, any of them can actually pick up a Blade Mail, and because Blade Mail returns pure damage, it will instantly kill the Husker when he jumps on you. So they already have an inbuilt mechanism to deal with the Husker. You also have the Pugner that can simply decrep whatever target Husker goes on, or simply stand his ground with Life Drain, and try to keep himself alive long enough for the rest of his team to come in. So going to quickly introduce the players over from both teams. Over on the away team, Tuzki or Husky, we've got Diego going to be over on what looks like the 5 position Pugner. Tuzki, the captain, going to be what looks like the 2 position Death Prophet. He's holding onto his gold for now. Pork, he's also holding onto his gold. Could potentially be the Trey lane Viper, but because they've got the Husker pickup, he's deliberating a bit. Looks like he is going to be running over to the mid lane. We've got Lithium rotating over as what looks like the 4 position Skywrath Mage. As Diego, he's going to be the 5. Looks like he's opted to pick up Sentries. And as an offlane, I've got La as a Clockwork Goblin, immediately rotating to the top lane with a Safety Ward. So the usual Safety Ward placement is around there, but because it's so common, a lot of support players will deward it, so he's going for a much more unconventional Safety Ward placement there, since because most support players expect the Safety Ward to be around this area, or around here, they're usually placing the Sentry Ward around here to be able to try to block them out and kill it as quickly as possible. By placing it there or there, which is another unconventional spot, increases the likelihood that that Safety Ward will survive. And that drastically increases your rate of survival, since you can see every single time they go for a pull attempt, and when a support hero is pulling, you can threaten and kill against the other support hero, especially since they're so slow. Over for FortyeniN, the home team, we've got Zhao. Going to be over on the Husker, looks like he is going to be in the mid lane. Ace or Lancer are going to be the supporting Lich. He's just going to eat a creep from the mid lane to ensure that Zhao is able to hit level 2 faster than the Death Prophet, or in this case it's going to be the Viper. So they actually should look to rotate their lanes, because the Husker will get completely destroyed by the Viper. Over on the off lane, we've got Highfish, the captain from Ace. He's going to be the Faceless Void. Looks like he was able to drop his Safety Ward, but was immediately dewarded out as Lithium, showing no mercy. He does pick up a Haste Rune, and he's immediately going in over in Diego. Did already use his Time Walk, he did eat that Nether Blast. Standing his ground, he eats a huge amount of damage. So Fish going to be forced to blow his salve at this rate. The Arcane Bolt still flying through. Tiny Tiger going to be the 1 position player over for Ace. Unfortunately, he did mess up the creep block. And La looks like he did use the Cog block, so it ensures he's able to pick up level 2. It's the added benefit of the Clockwork Goblin. The Radiant offlaner enjoys a significant advantage because the creep equilibrium is a lot closer to your tower to begin with, and you also have access to that hard camp. So you can pull that hard camp to try to control creep equilibrium to make sure you're able to hit level 6 fairly uncontested. And Clockwork Goblin also has the added benefit of being a threat and a kill. In fact, Angel has to be very careful. He's going to be over what looks like the 4 position Visage. And in the mid lane matchup, Pork, he knows he has the advantage up against the Husker. He's opting not to go for a single point in the Poison Orb, immediately opted for Nether Toxin as well as the Corrosive Skin. So the early point in the Corrosive Skin means that he can man fight up against Zhao, because you also have to keep in mind the attack speed snare that comes out from it. We do have a Sentry Ward being placed there, but because there was an unconventional Safety Ward being placed, wasn't able to spot him out. So this is what I was talking about with La's recognition, because he knows that that's going to be the most common Safety Ward placement. we've got actually a bit of a greedy pub ward coming up from the Radiant side. If you're on the Dire side, you never want to place a ward here because it provides so much vision that's very easy to spot out that they're placing a ward there, because it provides you the safety ward vision as well as rune. So this is usually the common counter ward spot from the Radiant that supports. So since they expect it to either be there or there, so you usually want to place it in a bit more unconventional position, such as there. But Highfish, his sole objective is to try to hit level 6. Once he's got that Chronosphere, he can look to set up kills for the rest of his team. But until then, he's just going to be hiding. With that earlier Poor Man Shield, he should be able to mitigate a fair amount of damage. Looks like Lance has actually rotated over to the offlane. This is another advantage of the Lich, is it gives you the functionality of being able to run these dual lanes instead of tri-lanes. But Tuzki, as that safe lane farmer, he's not showing any mercy over to Highfish. Immediately throws out the Crypt Form, threatens to go for a kill. And Zhao in the mid lane matchup getting quite handily out CS. Looks like they actually have broken even. He's actually got one more CS. So despite the fact that Viper has Nether Toxin, the marksmanship aura is being able to provide Zhao some last hitting presence up against Pork. So Pork, this is a matchup that clearly favors the Viper. Since Husky, the way he wins the mid lane is by trading right clicks. He doesn't have enough base damage traditionally to be the threat in last hitting advantage compared to a hero like a Viper, because he's got the Nether Toxin. In this case, because he's got the marksman aura, is able to do fairly well. But Pork immediately recognizing that if he can't out CS him, just start hitting him. Once he gets the second point in the Nether Toxin, he can threaten to go for a Zhao, a kill over in Zhao. Regen rune actually picked up by Lala, who also popped the battery assault. So it looks like he did that just because he could, to ensure that he's able to regen some kind of mana. And Highfish over in the bottom lane, 3 CS up on him, so he is being quite handily out CS compared to Lala. But Lala, the advantage of the Clockwork is you also have the Rocket Flare, which he hasn't actually picked up yet, but he probably will be looking to pick it up at level 4, which gives you some lasting presence. And so he's opting to go for a traditional Clockwork Goblin build, where you max out the battery assault. It looks like over in the bottom lane, Husky, as well as support player the Skywrath Mage, Lithium playing very aggressively up against Highfish. He's actually completely out of regen. And one of the ways you have to deal with the Skywrath Mage, especially if you're the offlaner, is you simply just pick up another set of tangos. And the biggest weakness of the Skywrath Mage is he chews through mana incredibly quickly, and mana is a lot more expensive than HP regen. And so the best way to deal with the Skywrath Mage, especially if you're the hero in an offlane position where you're going to be eating all those arcane bolts, is just to try to outlast him. So bring a lot more regen than he has mana. And Fish, he's actually gone for a bit of a misbuild. He's opting to prioritize backtrack, which is a huge disadvantage because you want at least 2 to 3 points up into the time walk, and you need to max out that time lock ASAP, because that's where your killing power comes from. Zhao now being driven out of lane, and Pork, he's trying to rest control the lane away from him. It looks like he opted for an early point over an Inner Vitality. This is a bit of a controversial skill build. You do see some Huskar players opt for that point in Inner Vitality early on. In this case, because he knows he's going to be eating a lot of harassment damage from the Viper, he needs to keep himself in lane. Otherwise, you want to prioritize that second point in Berserker's Blood because it gives you a lot more killing power at level 6. The advantage of this, though, is that he knows that he can't really go for a kill attempt on the Viper. And because Huskar is such a slow hero, he can't really threaten to gank the other lanes unless he gets a great root, such as a haste rune or double damage. And so he just wants to sap as much experience as possible. In that mid lane, maybe go for as much CS as possible. But the drawback of this is Viper's a hero that literally just sits in the mid lane until he gets to the farm and then looks to start taking down towers once the mech comes online. So Pork, 2 points up in the Poison Orb now, going for a very aggressive Viper build. The traditional Viper build, especially in the Chinese scene, is you want to prioritize Corrosive Skin, especially if you're going to be the mech carrier, because A, it guarantees you're going to get that mech off, and B, it means that any gank attempt on you can actually turn around with impunity, because you've got the extra EHP from the magic resistance from the Corrosive Skin. You also have the offense capability, but while I say that, Zhao, Michael Jordan dunks into Pork, and Pork just stands his ground, slaps him, and says, "You come at the king, you best not miss." Wasn't really too sure what the Huskar was thinking, that you really can't threaten to go for a kill against the Viper, because he's a hero that hard counters you. The second point in the Nether Toxin looks like he's actually choosing to prioritize that. It means that the lower your HP pool is, the more bonus damage you're giving him, and since your Burning Spear also reduces your HP pool by 20 every time you throw it, you're essentially giving Viper a free kill. And it looks like he is going to be the mech carrier for his team. Has picked up that Chainmail, also looks like he's got 2 selves. So he TP'd himself back home, he's got another self up on him. He's got to hit level 6, and so once that happens, he can threaten to go for a kill on either the Drow or the Visage. Since it looks like, because it's a dual lane, they really can't do all too much to try to control him. They at least have the Frost Arrow to try to control in that case and try to orb harass him out. Looks like I'm having a little bit of lag over on my end, I do apologize. Over in bottom lane, Diego. The advantage of the Pugnet is similar to the Jakiro. He's a support hero that provides you a massive amount of pushing power, especially when you've got 2 other very potent pushing heroes. You've got the Death Prophet as well as the Viper, who's just able to provide that anchoring presence. Fish, he's backing himself off. He doesn't have any points over in time lock. So while this build does give him a huge amount of survivability, it gives him no killing power. And that's the biggest weakness of the Faceless Void, is while you can run him as an offlane hero, he has to find kills once he gets that Chronosphere. If he's unable to find kills, he falls off completely, because he is still a farm-dependent hero past the 20-minute mark. The reason why he's used as an offlaner now is the fact that within Chronosphere, Time Lock does double damage. And so with the maxed out Time Lock, 140 damage every single time that procs. It gives you a huge amount of solo killing power, especially once the Mask of Madness comes online, or if you've got other heroes that could capitalize off it. In this case, because he doesn't have any points in Time Lock, Faceless Void can't actually be that playmaker. He can't set up kills on his own, he has to have someone there. And because you don't have the global presence that you would have had if you had picked up something like an Invoker, very difficult for him to do so. So it will be interesting to see how FortyeniN decide to recover in the mid game, especially with the bit of an unconventional Faceless Void pickup as far as his build is concerned. So he's opting to prioritize backtrack. Usually Faceless Void players, especially in the offlane, they actually opt to sometimes completely forgo backtrack. It's a very old school build, prioritizing backtrack. Back when Faceless Void used to be run as a one position farmer, in that offlane role you actually see Faceless Void go for something more along the lines of 203, since you want to max out that time walk, or you want to max out the time walk or the time lock to be able to provide yourself either the initiating team fighting power or the solo ganking presence. Zhao now rotating over on Tuzki. Tuzki immediately backs himself off. He goes instead over on Diego. Diego stands his ground. He drops a Nether Ward. Pork also TP's in. Mech, he's almost got it, and Zhao immediately backs himself off. Looks like Husky did actually opt to go for a bottle, so a bit of an unconventional pickup, since Husky usually doesn't need a bottle. He doesn't get too much benefit from it. In this case, because he opted to go for a point in the Vitality, he actually does have a use for his mana. And it also gives you the rune control, since Viper is also a hero that doesn't really have to go for a bottle unless you really want to control runes, or use the runes to translate them to kills. Pork is designed to completely forgo it. He has decided to go rush for the mech, and he's picked it up. So 8 minutes into the game, this is the biggest strength of this mid lane Viper, especially with the first blood. 8-minute mech up on him. He's got about 1300 EHP with the mech armor as well as the EHP from the corrosive skin. So it makes him incredibly durable. It means that if Ace decides to initiate on him, he'll always be able to translate that into a trade. So long as he's able to get the mech off, he should be able to bring down at least one other person with him. As support comes in as well, he might actually be able to stay alive long enough to completely turn the gank. So Zhao, he knows he can't just Michael Jordan dunk him, because even with Lance there, that's because Pork now has the mech, as well as the 3 points up in the Nether Toxin. He's actually opted to prioritize Poison Orb. So usually Viper players keep Poison Orb at level 2 if they decide to invest in more points in it, because you want to have that Corrosive Skin maxed out as soon as possible. It's what gives you such a massive amount of team fighting impact. Because if the enemy team can't kill you as a Viper, you sure as hell can kill them. You'd out DPS almost every other hero in the first 20 minutes just with Nether Toxin. And so having the EHP coming in from the Corrosive Skin, as well as the additional snare, so it means that Ace supports, they can't even nuke you without being snared. And that snare coming in from the Corrosive Skin, well, it doesn't seem like much. The fact that they are going to receive it no matter what they do means that you could use it to set up kills. Especially since Visage is such a slow hero, if he throws a Soul Assumption at you, he's going to get snared. You can even translate that occasionally into kills. So Huskar, holding onto his gold, and looks like he might actually be the mech carrier for his team. And Huskar, all he really has to build for the early stage of the game is survival. And so he has all the damage he needs from the Berserker's Blood as well as from the Burning Spears, and so Mech Rush on Huskar usually isn't too bad of a build order. And Lance, he's opted for early points over in the Frost Armor to try to provide some additional survivability for his teammates. The advantage of Lich is he can now Frost Armor towers. Before, the biggest weakness of a Lich is, as a support hero, he can't do anything to halt a push. And that's something that the Visage also doesn't give you. He can't push on his own. Hookshot actually flies in over La La La. He does catch out Angel, and Angel, he's going to be the sacrificial lamb. He throws out Soul Assumption, so from Hell's Heart, he stabs at the... Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough. Pork on the hunt, and Tiny Tiger actually opted for Phase Boots over in Drow Ranger. Is a bit of a questionable boot choice. Phase or Treads. It's usually a matter of player preference. In Southeast Asia, Phase Boots usually are prioritized on heroes like the Drow Ranger or the Luna, because they do prefer movement speed and the chasing capability it gives you, especially on a position-dependent hero like the Drow Ranger. But because she has so much snare coming in from the Frost areas, as well as the recent buff to Gust, so you could actually use it to push people back, Treads has become the de facto boot choice for a lot of pro players. But that being said, the advantage of the phase movement speed is that if you can get out of range of Viper, so you can't Viper strike you or hit you, it will keep you alive. And so it does provide you a lot of survivability from that. But Tuzki immediately pops the egg, so he opted for an early point in Nexus in mid-6 because he's going to be in that tri-lane farmer, so he can't afford to wait until level 8, level 9 to opt for a point in Nexusism. He has also opted for Arcane Boots because he knows that the strength of his team's lineup is that early game push. Because you've got 3 very tanky cores, and because you've got that mech online, all you need now is mana to be able to sustain your push. So I've taken 2 towers, and we have a look at the Golden Experience graph. Husky, 2k net worth in their hands, 11-minute mark. There's a significant gold lead in their favor. In terms of experience, it's actually starting to go in favor of Ace, but it's a fairly negligible difference. So they are actually, through the sacrifice EXP you get from Lich, they are actually able to maintain some kind of parity. Looks like Fish, he's now opted to go for a few points over in Time Lock, so he recognizes that he needs these points in Time Lock if he wants to go for kills, especially with the preference for team fighting that Tuzki or Husky's lineup seems to be opting for. La does catch out Tiny Tiger, and Tiny Tiger, where is your phase boots now? He's going to eat an arcane bolt to the face. He stands his ground, but unfortunately, not going to be enough. The Visage Familiars are there. Angel goes in over on Lithium. Lithium trying to juke himself around. Soul Sumption flies out. It's not going to be enough damage, unfortunately. Visage Familiars are also there. Fish running in. If he decides to commit the Chronosphere, he could go for a kill. He decides to do it. And Lance, unfortunately, he runs into the Chronosphere. So Lithium, he still might actually even make it out there, but the Frost Blast is there. Viper Strike now flies over on Fish. Soul Sumption flies. It was the Michael Jordan dump over on Pork. And Pork, he actually should die to the dot damage. Grave Chill's there, just to ensure the kill. And the other two players of Tuzki the Husky, they just get the hell out of dodge. They know there's nothing they can do there. If they went in, they would have taken the fall as well. And so the advantage that Tuzki or Husky had now is being turned. And so the momentum's starting to go in favor of Ace. And if they're able to take this tier 1 tower in the mid lane, which they actually might be able to, they do have, fortification was used earlier, they might be able to take this tower, and that tower will start to give them the gold lead that they could use to try to transition control back from the game. So it looks like Xiao, he's going for Honor Shadow, so fairly standard pickup over in Huskar. Similar to a Pudge, makes very good use of the stats you get from it. And the extra dot is especially nice, with the dot damage you already have from the Bony Spears to ensure kills. Diego looks like he's going to be maxing out that Nether Blast. So Pugner, he was able to provide that massive pushing presence, since Nether Blaster does deal damage to towers. So that with the Nether Toxin coming in from Viper, as well as the Exorcism, means that Tuzki or Husky, every single time the Exorcism's up, and they've got that Viper Strike available, they just group up as 5 and try to take a tower. They've got the Clockwork Goblin, if they catch a single hero out, he hookshots in, kills somebody off, isolates them, and they're able to start a fight like that. Once they take that fight, because they can't fight against them 4v5, they can then translate them to tower. And so Pork, doing what Viper does best, just being a tanky presence, he runs up to the front line, he forces you to deal with them because he's so durable and because he outputs so much damage. He always forces the enemy team to react. You can concussive shot flies on Zhao as well as the Viper Strike, and Zhao he also gets caught by the hook shot. Mystic Flare unfortunately whiffs, and he's able to pop that Invis Rune. Chain Frost flies, and he's able to use the cogs to do the pushback, and the rest of Ace. But Highfish now comes in, fortunately doesn't have the Chronosphere. There's a few more right clicks still coming out from Pork, and Highfish is actually just backs out. Soul Assumption flies over on Pork, but with 2 points in the Corrosive Skin as well as the mech, he doesn't really care too much. And so while they did whiff the Mystic Flare, and while the Exorcism has worn off, the tower's taken enough damage, it still might be taking a fall. Ace, they don't have the Chronosphere, that's the critical factor they need to be able to turn these fights. So they back off. Zhao, Invis Rune being used up on him, he could have actually tried to go for, at least cancel the TP with the ult over on Viper, besides not to risk it, but while that happens, Visage Familiar is doing a little bit of split push. They're able to take one tower. Once the Marksmanship aura comes online, it really becomes a significant factor, since when you activate the Marksman aura, it does apply to the Visage Familiars. We've now got a Yule Scepter very early over on Tuzki, so you opted for Arcane Boots. Usually you see Phase Boots picked up on the Death Prophet, because it gives you the additional mobility, which you already have from Witchcraft, and that in conjunction with the Yule Scepter essentially gives you permanent haste every single time the phase is available. However, the advantage of the Arcane Boots is because your team is going to be grouping up as 5 and trying to taking these early towers, you need that mana to sustain these pushes, especially with the double Arcane Boots also coming up from Pugner, as well as the Skywrath Mage. That gives you all the money you need to be able to try to take these engagements. Highfish, taking a few right clicks from Pork, he does time walk out. Looks like from those kills, from the assist goal at least, he's actually almost got the Mask of Madness. He's got the Morbid Mask currently in his inventory. Once that Mask of Madness comes online, he will start to have a little bit more solo killing power. He still needs more points in the time lock for him to really be effective as a solo ganker, especially against a hero like Pork, since he's also almost got that maxed out Corrosive Skin. We've got a Blade Mail pickup coming up from Clockwork, and I love the Blade Mail pickup, especially because you've got a lot of uncontrolled AoE coming out from Ace. The Chain Frost, you can't control who it goes to, and so it means that if he decides to hookshot onto you and pops his Blade Mail, if you reactively Chain Frost the Clockwork, he doesn't care if he dies, he's returning enough damage to the rest of your team that makes it worthwhile. And Clockwork Goblin, he excels with the Blade Mail because he's a hero that relies on isolating a target and going 1v1 when you trap him with the Cogs as well. So hookshot flies over on the Highfish. Highfish, he's immediately silenced by the Ancient Seal. Mystic Flare now drops on him. Then Cryptstorm cleans him up, so Swords from the Heavens cut him down. Lance caught up with a concussive shot, but unfortunately they're not going to be able to capitalize, or maybe they might be able to. Arcane Bolt flies. Diego running in, he wants to set up for the Decrepify, but not able to do so. Exorcism flies, and they decide to trade Tier 2 for Tier 1. Radiant side decides to pop their fortification and try to hold on to their Tier 1 for as long as possible, because they know that they have to take these towers and they need to take them now. Absolute phenomenal performance over the Clockwork Goblin. He's been setting up every single fight perfectly by initiating with that hookshot. They are able to take that Tier 2, and they might actually be able to defend their Tier 1. Never mind, they did lose it. Zhao immediately reactively TPs back. And Angel, he's got to be a bit careful. He's the only one on his team that's in the neighborhood, especially if they decide to come in from the side to try to cut him off. but they instead decide to TP back and defend their own towers. Diego looks like he's going to actually be going for what looks like a Yule Scepter of his own. So double Yule Scepter build. The advantage of having multiple Yule Scepters on your team is you could use it defensively against on yourself, or you could also use it aggressively against Ace, because I know that the only hero on Ace that's going to be opting for a BKB this early on and will be able to find it will be the Drow Ranger. And Drow Ranger actually opted for the Mask of Madness. And so very similar to a Sniper, Drow Ranger with Phase Boots and Mask of Madness early on is absolutely terrifying because she does so much damage that you can't actually get close to her to be able to deal damage to her. Especially when you've got the pushback silence now coming in from the Gust. So it enables Drow to just take out towers as well as heroes one at a time with the same amount of DPS you get from it. However, it is a very timing specific build. You have to get it at least in the first 15 minutes, because past that point, especially with all the tower gold and the experience gold going in favor of Tuzki or Husky, it will reach the point where they'll be able to kill you and DPS you down before you can really get that damage off. In this case, because you've got the Faceless Void Chronosphere set up for you, and because you've also got the Chain Frost and the Visage Familiars to try to create space, it does give you a lot of DPS, and that's really what Ace need if they want to try to turn these fights. Nice. So if they get a good Chronosphere from Highfish, Ace definitely have the capacity to be able to win these engagements quite convincingly, but Hookshot once again catches out Ace. He decides to reactively chrono. Ancient Seal unfortunately flies a little bit too late, but that's a 120 second window of opportunity they've now given over to Tuzki or Husky. And they immediately start pinging at the tier 3. They say, okay, we've got 2 minutes, let's make them count. We've got Exorcism up, we've got the Viper Strike, it's level 2 now. Unfortunately, still is a level 1 Exo, since the drawback of the Tri-Lane Death Prophet is she does get quite EXP style, especially if you're going for this Death Ball style draft where you're just running at them as 5, trying to take as many objectives as possible. Pork, he's going to be going for the Aghanim Scepter, so very standard build over the Viper. Treads mech into the Aghanim Scepter, provides you enough team fighting capability for you to be able to win these engagements almost single-handedly, especially once the Aghanim Scepter comes online. Visage Familiars, they're trying to threaten Pork, but with the Exorcism up, they have to be very careful. You never want to feed those Familiars. Pork eats a Frost Blast, and the Nether Ward's already there. Mech being used very early on. Zhao, he's just eating those spirits like they're candy. There isn't candy in those spirits, there's only damage. You gotta be a little bit careful there. But he's standing his ground for now. Looks like Huskar's not going to be the mech carrier for his team. He's actually going to be opting for a very early BKB. While I like this, the drawback of going for this BKB is until you get it, it's not going to provide you any benefit. The mech at least provides you the EHP for the rest of your team. They're just trying to wait out the Exo. Looks like they have. And so they now have that window to try to take a fight, especially with the Chronosphere coming off cooldown in the next 40 seconds. And Tuzki or Husky, they start backing off. They know they can't take a fight with that Exorcism. They can't afford to lose a fight. And so the biggest weakness of the Deathball lineup is it's entirely built on execution. If you lose a single fight in the critical period, so 15 to 25 minutes, if you lose a single fight in that period, you really get set back by a huge amount. And because Deathball relies so heavily on you being able to take these early objectives and overwhelm the enemy before they start to get their assets online, you can't afford to take a single loss in a team fight, especially against a lineup that has a superior late game potential. Since Ace with the Drow Ranger, the Huskar, and the Faceless Void, all three of the core scale very well. Clockwork Goblin, like the Pandarian Brewmaster, for the first 35 minutes, he's absolutely fantastic. Past that point, he does start to taper off, because that's when BKBs come online. And once BKB comes online, Clockwork Goblin, he can't do anything. He can hookshot into you and still stun you, he can still try to isolate you with the cogs, but in terms of his DPS potential, in terms of his ability to control the rest of your team, he can't really do that anymore. It's very easy to kill him, to completely disregard the Blade Mail. And so Tuzki or Husky, they know they're on the clock. They have to try to take these objectives now, and they have to continue to further the gold gap, because if they ever start to slip up, things start to look very ugly for them. Since Death Prophet, in theory, she's got a 35-minute window, very similar to the Pandarian Brewmaster, but in practice, if you get enough farm on her, she still is a threat at all stages of the game. So we've got about 4,000 gold lead in favor of Tuzki or Husky, about 5,000 at this point. So things are looking very good for them. In terms of net worth, Drow Ranger, because she's been sitting there whacking creep for so long, she still is actually leading the net worth scoreboard. And once the BKB comes online for Drow Ranger, it looks like she's actually going for what looks like potentially a Mantis Cell. So she opted to pick up a very early Blink Dagger. So it's very similar to a Sniper. Phase Drum into Blink Dagger. Blink Dagger gives you a huge amount of offensive capabilities as well as defensive capabilities. Sans actually flies over in Pork. Mystic Flare does clean up Tiny Tiger. Zhao stands his ground against Pork, but Pork's able to bring him down. Burning Spare damage isn't going to be enough to take him down, to the mech charge was used. And Skywrath Mage, Lithium, he cleans up too. And so the drawback of the Drow Ranger, especially when you opt not to go for a BKB, Skywrath Mage simply pops you. Highfish caught up the silence with a Grape Shield, eats a Crypton, takes so much damage from that. Yule Scepter now being used, he can decide to reactively use the Chronosphere to try to keep himself alive. Actually walks and TPs out, he might be able to keep himself alive. Spirits aren't going to be there. Tuzki actually could have opted to throw out Cryptstorm that way to try to guess check if he was going to try TP out, unfortunately wasn't able to do so. And great play coming out from Highfish, keep himself alive. Tuzki looks like he's actually going to be going for what looks like either a Shiva's Guard or the Assault Karas. Either option would be fantastic for the Death Prophet. The Assault Karas gives you that additional pushing capability by reducing the armor of the enemy tower. as well as making you a lot beefier. But the Shiva's Guard provides you a huge amount of teamfighting presence because you now have a snare of your own. And so both the Familiars actually are about half HP, so you have to be fairly careful of them. They are going to scout out Lithium, and Lithium, unfortunately, as a Skywrath mage, can't really do anything against those Familiars. Lance looks like he's actually the mech carrier, so he has picked it up. And so usually the reason why you want one of your cores to go for a mech, especially in the current metagame, is with the emphasis on these 5-on-5 engagements and taking early objectives, you want to guarantee the mech in the first 10 to 15 minutes. If you're not able to do so, the team that has a mech against a team that doesn't have a mech enjoys a significant teamfight advantage, just because in terms of sheer EHP potential, you've got 1,250 EHP going in favor of the enemy team, because they've got that mech heal that's going out to the rest of their teammates. Pascal, once that BKB comes online, he really starts to become a lot more dangerous then, because he can really disregard a lot of the damage coming out from the Death Prophet as well as the Clockwork. Of course, the drawback of the Rush BKB build on the Huskar is Huskar's additional weakness is the fact that he's actually got very low armor. It's the reason why Mech is another great pickup on him, because it also provides a huge amount of armor to further increase his EHP, especially against the Death Prophet's Exorcism. Drow Ranger looks like she's going to be picking up a casual Yasha. She might opt to double back then to go pick up a BKB, which I probably would recommend, especially with the sheer amount of magic damage coming up from the Skywrath Mage. Otherwise, if she opts to go for that Mana Cell, it does give you the benefit of the Mana Cells. It does give you the capacity to simply destroy a nuke coming out from the Skywrath Mage, such as the Arcane Bolt, or it could also use it to immediately break the Ancient Seal and to help split a fair amount of damage coming out from Mystic Player. Diego is scanning out Highfish. Highfish, unfortunately, doesn't know where he is. Grave Silence does fly out. Fortunately, Backtrack is able to keep himself alive. He does time walk and starts keeping himself out, but this time the Mystic Player is there, and Tralala catches him out with the hook shot. So no mercy being shown, and with that kill, they know they don't have to deal with that Chronosphere. And Tuzki or Husky, they're on the clock. They've got 13 minutes to be able to try to breach high ground before the lineup starts to run out of steam, and so they're going to take every single chance they can. Orc almost has a Aghanim Scepter completed. And with Diego there, they should be able to take this tower. They're holding on to their Exorcism for now, so great recognition coming up from Tuzki. The biggest mistake that a lot of Death Prophet players make is they pop the Exo too early. If you don't have to use it to take a tower, you definitely want to hold on to it. Unless you're forced to use the Exorcism, you always want to hold on to it, because the instant the Exorcism is down, you lose the vast majority of your team fighting capacity. So Tuzki, now he pops the Exorcism because he's threatening their tech team. He's forcing all of Ace to return back home, because Homer's in trouble. Jal is trying to scout out La La La. La 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 might actually scout him out as well. The added benefit of the Clockwork, especially when you're trying to breach high ground, is he's able to always provide intelligence with the Rocket Flare. The biggest advantage the defender has over the aggressor is the fact that they have no idea where you are. Hookshot now flies over on Zhao. Zhao stands his ground. Blade Mail's been used, so he can't do anything. Ancient Seal's there. The Arcane Bolt poops him in the face. Hawk runs in, catches out Fish with the Viper Strike. Fish now eating that Mystic Flare like a champ. La La La's able to clean him up. Chronosphere unfortunately wasn't able to be used to great effect. Buyback instantly coming out from Zhao. The Life Drain pushes back Visage, who's just barely able to keep himself alive. Zhao now going against the entire team, 1v3. Not really giving a damn. Lithium, unfortunately, dies to the dot damage. Concussive Shot being disjointed. And Diego, he should be the Mechanon out there, unless the Visage really drops there. Unfortunately, not going to be able to do so, but the Burning Spear dot damage is enough. And so Ace, off the back of some really incredible play coming out from Zhao, able to turn that fight. So the Chronosphere, while they weren't able to translate that into kills, they're able to buy enough time for the Huskar to return and re-engage that fight. And so good defense coming out from Ace. And with that team fight going their way, things are starting to look a lot grimmer for Tuzki or Husky. It still is there. They still do have the advantage in terms of the game, just in terms of the sheer macro advantage, since they've got about 9,000 gold lead and about 1,000 EXP lead in their hand. But with every loss they take, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to recover, especially since they've now got about 10 minutes to try to breach high ground before they start to run out of steam, especially with the BKBs coming online very shortly. So Drow Ranger, because while she actually looks like Tantangle was able to stay alive for the vast majority of that fight, and so she was able to deal a huge amount of DPS. The added benefit of the Blink Dagger in this case is you could reposition yourself on either side of the Chronosphere. And so you use the Chronosphere as a giant wall to be able to prevent the enemy team from going on you. Also can use it to keep yourself out of the hands of the Clockwork Goblin. If he doesn't hookshot you, you could use it to keep yourself out of position. And with that gust to reposition yourself, you're able to ensure that your marksmanship's never broken. It provides a fair amount of damage. Dire side are actually able to clean up tail 1. So Highfish, doing a little bit of split pushing, he's going for the loader build. And now opting to go for a Maelstrom. The advantage on the Maelstrom on a hero like a Face's Void is he actually gets more DPS from attack speed than he does from actually building damage. Viper Strike being flown over an Angel. And Angel, he's got to be incredibly careful. Stands his ground with a Grave Shield over on Pork. Pork doesn't really give too much of a damn though. He's got the mech, and he's got the rest of his team there. He's just drawing fire, giving time for Tuzki to be able to take that tower. The Sheet's Guard's now up. Viper Strike being used once again over on Lance, just using it on the supports just to bully them out. And Lich has to be incredibly careful. Zhao actually denies the tower, so great deny coming out from him. That actually is a huge win for them, especially since the exorcism is about to wear off, and so Tuzki or Husky immediately back themselves off. So Ace, they're playing the game to perfection because they know that the only way they can win this is if they try to take the game to late. So they need to get farm up on their 3 cores. The additional benefit of Visage is while he's a support hero, if he's able to find something like an Aghanim Scepter, he can effectively function as another core hero. So with the sheer amount of damage he's able to output with the Familiars, especially the Medallion of Courage and the Soul Assumption, he really can do a fair amount of work. And Highfish actually pinging the rest of his team saying, get back guys, I really need this farm so I can get my Maelstrom. Would have actually preferred something like a BKB earlier picked up on him, so if he gets caught out by La 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 and getting caught out by the Ancient Seal, he could at least pop the BKB and then use that to set up a Chronosphere reactively. Rocket Flare instantly spots out Tiny Tiger's Roshan attempt. Tiny Tiger, he's still going for it, the rest of his team is smoked up. So there's some alliance level mind games coming up from them. Zhao also smoked up, Ice Armor being used to help mitigate Huskar's weakness, which is his lack of armor. We've got some drawing on the map coming up from Tuzki or Husky. La 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 catches the Highfish once again. Highfish caught up with the silence. Mystic Flare being used, he's actually going to die before he gets that Chronosphere off. Zhao leaps in, now caught up with the silence as well as the Yule Step being used over in Diego to keep himself alive. Highfish instantly buybacks, trying to get himself back into the fight. Visage Familiar drop, unfortunately whiffs. Zhao eats the Arcane Ball, but with Berserk Supply, he should be able to shrug it off. Visage Familiar is trying to take out the Netherward, but Pork immediately starts driving him off. So they are able to bait out the buyback to Tuzki or Husky. They could choose to force the issue now and try to break high ground, especially since the tier 3 already has been taken, but at the same time they don't want to be walk into that Chronosphere. So they might decide to play a little bit passive until the mech comes off cooldown. Tuzki leading the charge, he actually sets up for a kill over on Highfish. He's going to use that instead of the Grave Shield. And Highfish, he wasn't able to time walk out. If Lala Lao was able to initiate with a hook shot there, they could have actually threatened another kill. Aghanim Scepter now up on the Clockwork Goblin. So like the Viper, 12-second cooldown. He now is transformed into Batman. You can't hide from him. He'll be able to track you down. Pork leading the charge. He's actually doesn't really give a damn. Just up on the front line. Zhao caught in a bit of an awkward position. He's actually going to be very careful. Could actually be taking death. Poison Orb's able to bring him down. So Viper cleans him up. 3-man Chronosphere, Mystic Flare being used over the Highfish, forces him back. La 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 now caught in the cage. So inside the Thunderdome, the Ancient Seal's able to bring him down. Diego backs himself off. Shiva's guard being used over an Angel, and Angel pops to the Cryptal, but kills too. Tiny Tiger, Arcane Bolt's gonna run him down. He's able to blink to keep himself alive, might be able to do so, but while that happens, you're gonna be losing your racks. Unfortunately, it's not even gonna be enough. And so the lack of BKB coming up from the Drow Ranger really spelling her doom. And Tuzki or Husky able to take the first set of racks, so that I told them that they had a 35-minute window to try and take a set of racks before the lineup starts to run out of momentum. They're able to do so. They might actually even be able to take 2, especially with no buyback and no Chronosphere up in the void. The only heroes going to be coming back in time are going to be the 2 supports, and they can't really do anything on the run. There's no Chain Frost, the Visage Familiars aren't going to be enough on their own, especially since the Familiars weren't really too much of a factor in that last engagement. And the sheer amount of pushing power coming up from them, and Ace, they've had enough, they call GG. So 29 minutes in, Tuzki or Husky are able to take a very successful game number 1 off some impressive death wall. Things were a bit hit and miss, especially over by the top tier 2 in the jungle, and they had that engagement, and Zhao was able to buy back and turn that fight. But the critical factor for Orc and Eden is the fact that they didn't have BKBs on their 3 core heroes. They needed an early mech up on the Huskar so they could take these fights, and while they probably wouldn't be able to win them, they'd at least be the trade and try to break even. So they needed to be the early mech up on Huskar, and needed the early BKB on the Drow Ranger especially. Drow Ranger with the BKB could have single-handedly turned the course of the game, especially since she opted for a very aggressive early to mid-game oriented build. And the Faceless Void, Highfish, he did have some great Chronospheres and he was able to perform fairly effectively. It's just the fact that he opted for so many points in the backtrack, he wasn't able to find these solo kill opportunities, and even if he did, he wouldn't have enough damage on his own because he didn't have enough points in time lock to make it worthwhile. And he looks like he opted to go for the Maelstrom as opposed to going for the BKB, so the lack of gold on the Void is the critical weakness of that hero. You need a fair amount of gold for him to be effective post the 20-minute mark. And so we're going to be taking a quick break, and we'll be right back for game number 2. Stay tuned for more.